What's up, y'all? It's your girl Cornelia back with another episode of Black News, a podcast where we break down current events, hot topics, and local stories involving Black people. Now let's get into it. Hey, y'all. Hello. Welcome back. Guess who's back? Welcome back. It's another week, Black News. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Forever grateful. Thank you all to the loyal listeners and to the new folks. I was out last week too. Y'all, I forgot. Y'all, I'm so sorry. I forgot I was traveling for work. I was out all week. So by the time I realized, and look, and I have the apps and things on my phone, but in order to save y'all from the jankiest audio possible and known to man, I just sit it out. I'm gonna sit it out. So I'm back this week after a long travel week to talk about Black news and everything that went down, child. And it was a lot. I feel like it was a lot of stuff happening collectively over the last, I would even say, month, right? It's just been so much to the point where I can't go back and cover it all. But some of those things, because I want to highlight just to let y'all know that I know what was going on. We had Carmelo Anthony, not the basketball player, former New York Knick. I'm talking about the Carmelo Anthony, the young black boy who was on trial and sentenced to 35 years in Texas. We had the New York Knicks winning the championship. Now, I may have talked about this before. I don't even remember if I talked about this, but the New York Knicks won, baby. Okay, they was out here. David Oyelowo was talking crazy on a podcast. We had somebody down over that house on the East Coast after that just weird UFC fight that was on in the front yard. Disrespect Michelle Obama. And we also had the Obama Presidential Center opening in Chicago. So what y'all want to talk about first? Oh, and we also had the backlash because the Reasonable Doubt vinyl is at Target. Y'all, what y'all want to talk about? That didn't even happen. What y'all want to talk about? You know what? Let's talk about the Obama Presidential Center first. Let's start off with this because with everything that's going on with the current political climate, is stuff drama happening in each state. The economy is bad. The job market is tanking very quickly. You got people out of work, gas prices skyrocketing, child, the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we got all of these things. It's no surprise that certain things are magnified because we just looking for some hope. That's why with the New York Knicks winning the NBA championship, that's why people are so happy and just so focused on people in New York being out and supporting because we just need to have a good time. We just need to celebrate something. We need some of that old thing back, which I believe is why, one of the reasons at least, why there has been a lot of focus on the opening of the Obama Presidential Center. Now, excuse me, it's the Presidential Center, but it technically is the Presidential Library. So people who were presidents of this United States, once they are out of office, after however many years, a certain period of time, it is often expected that there will be a presidential library opening up on their behalf somewhere in the United States, right? There was the Reagan got one, Jimmy Carter got one, the Kennedy Center, right? The Bushes. These are institutions that are opened up across the country that highlight the life of the president, their tenure in the presidency, other things about their life, just a good monument to recognize and celebrate for those who are interested in that, because it's some people who have libraries that I named that you ain't gonna never catch me going to. Okay. The thing about the Obama Presidential Center specifically, it is starting and causing a lot of conversations in all directions. You got the people who are happy, you got the haters. I'm one of the people who are happy and excited about it because baby, now I got to get over down to Chicago and get me and get into the presidential center. But one of a few of the things that or a few of the points of discussion, right? We're going to get into that. First, it is worth noting that this center is completely funded privately. A lot of presidential centers do get government funding. It's par for the course. Whether I don't think it's usually all of the funding for the presidential center, but with this one, it is an $850 million project, a complete campus in addition to the center that secured all of the funding through private donations. Okay. Now, the significance of that is in the importance. I'm willing to bet a big part of that decision is because one, we know President Obama was the first and only Black president of the United States of America. We know that people are still very upset about that fact. We know that we got somebody in the house over there on the East Coast right now that seems to be very obsessed with him and that family. We also see everything that is happening from a federal government perspective regarding uh, shutting down like buildings and entities and changing the name and removing history. Who's to say that if that center did not receive some government funding, that by next week tops, it would have been a ploy to try to shut down the building because it was funded by the United States government. So to me, that was one of the most strategic moves that you could have made regarding this center, right? So we have that. We have some people now being like, well, what's the point? Nobody wants to go. It's what do we have to do? It's a waste of money. If you didn't say it was a waste of money with the Reagan Center and Library, then shut your ass up. Like we're not doing that. Okay. Of course, the first and only Black president of the United States of America will have a presidential center and library. Of course, that to assume that out of all former presidents, he wouldn't have one is crazy, right? It's crazy. We also had some people, complaining or talking about why it was in Chicago. He was born in Hawaii, raised in Hawaii, spent some time overseas, lived a very full life. But because elements of the presidential center highlight Michelle Obama, who is a South Side of Chicago native, and because Barack Obama spent significant amounts of time in Chicago, got married in Chicago, kids were born in Chicago, they lived in Chicago, he became a community organizer in Chicago, was a senator of Illinois. So many things are about Chicago are a part of his and his family's story. It only makes sense that that is the case. And they also wanted to bring something to the south side of Chicago, especially in a city that is oftentimes demonized by mainstream media without actually doing research or going into Chicago to see what is what. Personally, I think Chicago is fantastic. I love me some Chicago. I think it's one of the best American cities. If it wasn't colder than a mug in the winter, I would highly consider basing myself in the city of Chicago. So that is one of the reasons why it is, some of the reasons why it's there. But with that in mind, it is not just a center, it is a museum, it is a community space, it is a public library branch. It also is somebody said this and it was so interesting because it's true. They said, of course, the black president and his black wife would basically use their presidential center as an opportunity to open up a community center. It's a community center. There's barbecue pits outside, areas of playground areas. They created a hill, a sledding hill, because when Michelle was a young girl, she always wanted to go sledding. So they built or created a hill where kids can sled down in the wintertime. There's so many different, there's a basketball court in there. They have community activities for kids and for the public. There's a garden. Like, it's just, y'all, it's just, in my opinion, one of the most incredible usages of the presidential center that I have seen. Right? If I've seen it, this is it. This is an example of how you use everything, all the tools in your arsenal, all the elements about yourself and your family to inform what your monumental legacy will be from years to come. Because, of course, the goal is for this building to be standing for years to come. It's just incredible. Some people are also saying, on a romantic tip, that this is a monument for Michelle. Because she's from Chicago, he got him a girl from the South Side. Okay. Michelle is Chicago through and through. And there's, like I said, there's so many elements within this that are for and centered around her, that it's kind of like a love, like a gift. Somebody, people on social media calling it the Taj Michelle, like the Taj Mahal child. Okay, I'm talking. Hey, build me a monument. Better yet, don't build me nothing, because I ain't. Hey, man, nope. But it's just a beautiful thing. So with that in mind, there was an entire opening celebration dedicated to the Presidential Center. I'm talking about days long events, performances, private ceremonies, receptions, uh, a, a huge event the day before Juneteenth, because the center opened on Juneteenth. How appropriate. Okay. Of course, the Presidential Center for the first and only Black president of the United States will be opening on Juneteenth. Of course. But with that, like I said, there were events, specifically a huge like celebration event on Thursday, where President Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, gave very beautiful and thoughtful speeches. It was attended by, y'all know, all of their celebrity and politician friends. Child, they had Auntie Kamala was out there, and them, Nancy Pelosi, Oprah, Gabrielle Union, D. Wade, Kelly Rowland, La Gail. Everybody was in the building. The performers were including Stevie Wonder, Bruce Springsteen, Jennifer Hudson, John Legend, Christina Aguilera, Bono and the Edge, Eddie Vedder, Tim's, Mark Anthony, Common, The Roots, and Uniting Voices Chicago. Of course, they had all these people. Of course. It was to the point where at the one moment, everybody started calling this the 250th celebration of America, because y'all know we're in the 250th year now. This felt more relatable to the celebration of the ideals and the true nature of inclusivity, and who we are, or we're supposed to be, or what people call us as a nation. That is a true reflection of it. And you ain't had no goofy flyers being thrown out. You ain't had nobody pulling out at the last minute. You didn't see nobody being like, well, how am I on this? I'm not performing for them. No, everybody was there, suited and booted. Okay. The ceremony was held at the center's John Lewis Plaza, because they named the plaza after civil rights icon, a freedom fighter, and so on, John Lewis. And it lasted, a few hours in the day. The Obama daughters were there looking fabulous as ever, all grown up. Okay, let me say something about this. Those girls got to be, and I believe in like people having role models, right? I am a believer that people need other people to look up to. I'm not in the school of like idolizing people, but I do think we need somebody to look at. And the way those two girls, Sasha and Malia, have navigated the weight of their family's legacy, the good and the bad, because with become being the first black president and the children of the first black president comes all of the hate from the other side who are upset, insecure about that still. But you have all of this family legacy. They managed to grow up in the spotlight in the White House, leave the White House and live their own lives, pursue their own endeavors, have their own experience. Malia is an accomplished TV writer. She produced, I believe, a short film recently. We don't even know what Sasha doing because guess what? That's their business. I really appreciate them navigating this experience the way that they have. I know it's probably so hard for them. Oh my God. I know they be so annoyed just being out. Imagine you out and listen, I know they be out and they be seeing the aunties and them. You know, the aunties be like, I'm a little niece. Sasha, my niece. You know, wherever they go and there's some black people around. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I know the love that they get is a lot, right? It can be overwhelming. However, I do appreciate them. And they were there to support their family. And they just was like just a good old black family. Okay. The presidents, former presidents were there and the first ladies. Now what I'm thinking about, I'm gonna put an asterisk in this because I don't know if I'm gonna circle back to this. It's been going around and I agree with this. I don't like how we forgetting what George Bush did back in the day. I don't like it. I don't like that people forgetting. We ain't forgetting. We ain't letting up off him. Anywho, I'm gonna keep going. It was a fantastic event. Now, the performances were moving. We know this. But specifically when it comes to the comments and the speeches made by both, it was Michelle Obama's speech that I feel like really hit home for a lot of people. And it's crazy how we know President Obama is one of the most dynamic political figures and orators we've seen. We since he first walked out on that DNC convention years ago and made that name for himself as a public figure, we have already always known that there are a few people who got it and he has it. But it's even crazier that Michelle, who is accomplished in her own right, okay? Harvard graduate, okay? Don't get it twisted. Attorney, former healthcare executive, boss in her own right, that she is arguably the better speaker or orator in her family. That's crazy. But her comments really moved me and they really hit home. And I'm gonna play some of it. But if y'all hadn't had a chance to watch the full thing, if y'all hadn't had a chance to, they've been doing a whole press run where they've been doing sit down interviews separately and together. It's just really nice to be reminded just for a little while that the chaos that we in, it didn't have to be this way. It wasn't always this way. But y'all know my thinking. I've said this on Black News quite a few times. I feel like in order to really rectify with the original sin of this country, a lot of this stuff that we experiencing has to happen. It gotta break down. We gotta break this down to the break pass. Y'all remember on Thin Line between Love and Hate when Martin went into the police station and he was telling on Brandy, aka Lynn Whitfield, and he came out and she broke him down in front of the police station. She took the tires out. She broke him down. That's what got to happen. We got to get broke down in front of the police station. Okay. We got to get broke down. So I'm going to play some of the moments from President. I won't play President Obama. I'm going to play Michelle Obama's speech. And then let me know your thoughts about it. And before I get into that, real quick, I'm glad that all of the performers and everybody in attendance and everybody I feel like with on the positive side of media and just our people rallied around Michelle Obama, considering the fact that just last week you had some disgusting comments being spewed out of nowhere randomly at a UFC fight. And that's how you know that people be crazy, because if you just want to fight and it's at the front of at the house over there on the East Coast, and this is an opportunity that you probably ain't really gonna get because ain't nobody building no goofy UFC ring in the damn over there like that. We're not doing that. And the one thing that you can think of is to disrespect somebody that hasn't even been in office or in a in like a high profile position in almost a decade. Like, that's what you spend your time. That's insane. That is literally insane. And it tells you that some people's obsession will ruin them at any turn. So I'm happy that this celebration has provided an alternative reality to negate that evilness and that hatred. Because y'all, like, what are y'all doing? These people be obsessed. Okay, they be obsessed. But here's the clip in a particular section that I thought was very needed. It was very well said, and we needed to hear this.
Oh, so please indulge me for a moment, because I'm going to take a little time to do something that I know my husband will not do today, and that is to fully sing his praises. Barack, you got to look at me. You told me all those years ago that you couldn't promise me the world, but you could promise me an interesting life. And of course, you outdid yourself and managed to give me both. I know it hasn't always been easy, but there hasn't been a single second through this experience that standing by your side hasn't left me in awe. 8 years in the crucible, and not once did you melt from the heat. Not once did you let it harden you. Instead, you used it to reveal your truest essence, your stubborn optimism and unflinching courage, your dazzling brilliance and unpretentious decency, your ferocious work ethic, and absolutely unshakable moral fiber. And to do it all as a first, and the higher standard that comes with all that, the claims that a U.S. senator and constitutional law expert wasn't qualified for the job, the lies about your birthright, your faith, your patriotism, the outrage when you stated the biological fact that if you'd had a son, that he too would be black. Yet, you were unflappable at every turn, always focused, always calm, always looking at the long view. How absurd it is to even imagine that you might have buckled under the pressure even once, lashed out in frustration, lost your temper. How absurd it is to imagine that you might have done anything but make our family and this entire country proud. No, you were too busy. I'm not done, y'all. Not done. So much to say. You were doing the people's work, rescuing our economy, expanding healthcare, ending a war, ordering the bin Laden raid, saving an auto industry, winning a peace prize, keeping us safe from Ebola, regulating the banks, standing up for marriage equality, listening to science, and comforting an entire nation in the face of unspeakable tragedies. And you did it all with such grace and class and cool that you made the hardest job in the world look like a walk in this beautiful park. Your mother, Toot, Gramps, you are a tribute to their love. They are up there grinning and hugging today because you never forgot who you are and where you came from. Single mother, working hard to get by and get an education and show her son the world. Grandparents who didn't have much, but they had the perfect recipe to nurture your flame. You never forgot the folks in the union halls and church basements here in Chicago, where you first put your ideals to this test. You never forgot all the voters you registered and students you taught and neighbors you organized. You never fell for the temptation of a quick fix or an easy payday. You never changed from that idealistic summer associate who showed up on that rainy day when we first met without an umbrella. You always gave us the very best within you. And in doing so, you reminded the rest of us that we could too. Barack, there are no words to express how proud I am of the way you showed up and continue to show up every single day. It has been an honor to be by your side. You have made me a better person and have given us all an example that we should strive to emulate. And I hope you know, oh, there is truly no higher calling than that.
With that said, are you guys going to make your way to Chicago to visit the Obama Presidential Center? You actually don't need a ticket to visit certain parts. You can go into the public library, the open spaces, the park. You can tour the grounds. But if you want to go to the museum, I believe you have to get a ticket, which are sold out through the end of the year unless you become a founding member, which is like a donor. So are you planning to go? Do you already have your tickets? Or is it something that you're just not interested in? I know for me, as soon as I'm able to get over down to Chicago and visit, I'm going to visit. Okay. Let me know your thoughts. You can find me at Cornelia on social media. Now, like I mentioned at the top of this episode, there have been a lot of things that have happened over the past week or two, and I can't get to everything. Right? I can't get to everything, and some things are ever changing and more developments are happening to the story, specifically regarding the Carmelo Anthony case. So I believe I will have time or have more space to come back with that, especially as it was announced today or yesterday that there was a new legal team representing him and moving towards trying to appeal the conviction, right? Carmelo Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in jail. Um, uh, due to the unaliving of another young man named Austin. Um, if you ask, legal experts and everybody. I haven't watched much of the trial. Well, they didn't show the trial. So I was trying to catch some recaps. I caught a couple, but again, I was traveling for work. So I didn't really get to dive in. It sounded like it was a very quick trial. There were no black jurors. It just didn't sound like it was going well. To the one point, people were posting a picture with his attorneys and the judge or prosecutor saying that they were all friends. I'm talking about a mess. This is a bad look. So there was announced that a new legal team was put together. People were calling this the legal Avengers, baby. They working pro bono to try to get this appealed and overturned because it ain't sounding like it went down the way it needed to go down. We're also concerned about the witnesses and saying, and one particular young man was saying he didn't know Carmelo Anthony, they weren't friends, but then they show some evidence where he was in 4, 5, 6, 7 pictures with Carmelo. So how y'all taking pictures if y'all ain't cool? So again, there will be developments on that case. And as they continue to play out, I will follow up and come back and talk about it. But I feel like it's moving in the right direction regarding trying to challenge and get an appeal for that. But with so we have that. But next, I want to specifically spend a little time talking about David Oyelowo. David Oyelowo is a British actor of African descent who was on the podcast with Godfrey and I forget that other man name, right, child. It's the podcast is called 154 Africa, and they usually have guests on there talking about an array of topics. They usually get some good guests. This past week was with Gina Yashure, who was talking about her experiences working with other comics and the business and other things. But with David Oyelowo, they spent some time talking about a wide variety of topics. And in one particular instance, the Drewski sketch came up, right? Y'all remember Drewski did a sketch recently where he was doing a parody of British actors being in America playing Black American roles, right? Gangsters, hood dudes, all kind of stuff. And they were talking to David Oyelowo about that. But the conversation went into, and I'm gonna try to find it and play it for y'all because it's crazy. The conversation went into later a discussion about Southern accents, and he was asked to imitate a Southern accent. And per David Oyelowo, he said, if you take the Nigerian accent and slow it down, you put a lot of slavery in there. You put a little bit of subservience in there. This is what happens. And then, that's where it kicked in. Listen, that's where it kicked in. So let me play it, and then I'm going to add some commentary and some thoughts about this, especially considering I am one of those actors. I mean, one of those, yeah, one actors or just people in general who I enjoy acting. And I'm not usually upset when British actors get roles that are rooted in American culture because y'all, I can go on about the audition process. A lot of these times, everybody come in and audition. Everybody get the opportunity to audition. What you do with the role and how you show up for the audition is it makes the decision. Yeah, there are other factors, but a lot of times, maybe if everybody getting they're getting that first call. So if you can't get past the call back and it goes to someone else, in a lot of cases, it be about skill. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case, but sometimes it be about skill. So I don't necessarily be mad about a lot of it because hey, I haven't booked jobs because somebody did a better job than I did. Okay, somebody got more skills than me. But this, I will say, this commentary makes me view things a little differently. So let me play the clip and then we'll get into it.
You imagine you have to go and get the cane for yourself.
Oh yeah, but go and get my cane.
I don't know where it is.
You'll be flogged.
Yeah.
American.
Father, Or just American?
No, American. Just an American accent.
Did I try and be Godfrey?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Get on back now.
Okay, what are you saying now?
I don't know.
I don't know.
How do I sound?
I don't know. How do you sound, Godfrey? Why are we doing this? Why are we getting more crazy every time I'm talking like Godfrey?
How about Southerner?
How about what?
A Southerner.
Well, if I'm being a Southerner, well, you know what? You know what happens to Southerners? If you take the Nigerian accent like this and you slow it down, you put a lot of slavery in there.
Facts.
And then you start to put a little bit of subservience in it. This is what starts to happen to the Nigerian accent.
Man.
It goes this because literally, if you're down here and you start to speed it up, and then you start to take all the thing out of it, then before you know it, you're talking like this. Now we are free again. Now we are free. We are released.
Hey,
That
was a smooth transition.
You see that?
Damn.
You have to
Can you
study
try
it.
it?
You have to study
Now, what the F you talking about, David Oyelowo? Okay, like, what are you talking about? A few things immediately came to mind, right, within that. One, he played MLK. He played Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a slave and subservient? Like, I think he was a slave? Like, Martin was a slave. Fannie Lou Hamer was a slave? Because she wasn't. Like, was she subservient? It's so interesting how easy it is to forget or not even know the history of dialect and language, just linguistic, like all of these things as it relates to Black Americans and also Black Europeans, because David Oyelowo is saying all of these things while speaking the King's English. He's literally in the in that seat using the colonizer's language, right? But it's so easy that people, it's so interesting that people don't know how nuanced the Black experience has been when it comes to something like language, right? Southern accents. There are different accents across the country. When you think about Black accents across the country, that's even more intricate and more nuanced. You got people in Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, South Carolina. The Gullah community has their own language entirely. You got people in the Midwest, the West Coast difference between LA and Oakland, the Bay. Like, there's so much richness within that can be explained or spoken about without assuming that it stems from subservience and 100% slavery, right? There's like Black people literally were brought over here against their will from tribes and communities that, as a collective and separately, spoke hundreds of languages. And with that, were able to learn English without proper education in the space, okay, being forced to learn another language verbally, not even written, because we weren't allowed to read. We weren't allowed to learn how to write, spell, all of these things. So we learned a new language collectively, right? Hundreds of languages, dialects were merged into one. And that branched off and created a beautiful, rich, textured variety of languages across this country. And to explain it away by simply saying it has a hint of subservience and slavery is crazy. That's crazy. It also tells me that people don't feel like they have to do their due diligence when they share spaces or are in proximity or community with Black Americans. I'm wondering, or and I think that may be something that's happening, because to be a 40 something, 50 something year old man and having not connected those dots after studying and playing one of our most legendary historical figures, but then making that statement and thinking that is at the root of Martin Luther King Jr.'s accent and his being is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, maybe he was thinking in terms of the slavery aspect, right? When Black people were being tortured and terrorized under that institution, there was an element of subservience that was put upon us. Maybe that's what he's looking at. But for him to have played the roles that he's played and to be friends with some of the people he friends with, and to do that is crazy. Now, granted, people be having interviews, they be in the moment, they don't really be thinking. They don't be really you just be in there, right? You just in it, you say stuff and you be like, oops, after the fact. That could be the case. But now that this has happened, and I know this don't have no weight and this is unrealistic, especially when you think about the process of acting and auditioning and booking roles and casting all of the other stuff. But if people are going to step into roles that represent communities that have rich history, you gotta do the history. You gotta do the learning. Okay, you gotta do the knowledge. What did Deontay Casa do? The knowledge. That is one reason why I really appreciated Wumi Masaku's performance in Sinners. Y'all know I'm gonna find a way to bring it back to Sinners. You already knew what I was about to do. You know what I was about to do. Hearing her talking on the press run, the award circuit run about learning to play Annie, there was a level of knowledge and study that had to happen in order to be able to embody a woman, a character who was from Mississippi, moved to Louisiana and lived in the Jim Crow South and was a hoodoo practitioner. There was a level of work and knowledge that you had to resource in order to master the accent and to embody that character the way it was. Now, maybe David Oyelowo did that when he played MLK. Who knows? But child, I didn't like that statement. Now, but with that in mind, he was getting dragged. Okay. The brother got dragged and he posted an apology. I'm going to read the apology and then we'll go from there. Mind you, I'm looking at his social media and it's gone. So, like, that's how much he was getting dragged. He posted the apology and he had to take it down because people was like, man, shut up. He said, I want to apologize unreservedly to all those who were rightfully offended by my comments on the 154 Africa podcast regarding Southern accents. It was the wrong thing to say and it's not how I feel. I have nothing but deep respect and great love for Black people of all kinds, especially those from the American South. Reducing a dialect born from the richness and resilience of Black Southern culture to anything less was careless and wrong. All I truly care about is lifting up my Black brothers and sisters from all places through my work and my words. Please forgive my failure to do that in this instance. I don't know if that necessarily eased up on the dragon, but it must have did something because he took that thing right down. So there we have it. Let me know your thoughts about it though, because again, I y'all, and I say that as I be on this podcast and I be saying stuff, and when I edit it, I be like, "Child, why did I say that? What was I talking about?" I get it. I do it every week. Okay, I do it every week with y'all. But ugh, talk about foot and mouth. Okay. Let me know your thoughts about it though. Okay. Did you disagree with his statements? Did you feel like it was taken out of context? What are you thinking? Let me know. You can find me at Cornelia on social media. On this week's episode of Black News, we talked about the opening and celebration of the Obama Presidential Center that happened in Chicago, Illinois this past weekend. We discussed remarks made by both Barack and Michelle and the impact of the center and what it will have on our communities overall. We also talked about comments made by David Oyelowo on the 154 Africa podcast, specifically around Black Southern accents and his interpretation of that. Let me know your thoughts about all of these topics, some or none, and I'll check back with you guys next time. That's it for this week's episode of Black News, y'all. Thanks again for supporting the podcast by sharing, liking, subscribing, and rating 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. To find more information about me, you can check me out at Canelia on social media, as well as on my website, which is canelia.com. And as always, thanks for supporting, and I'll be back next week with new topics and a new episode.